Good morning and welcome. Welcome indeed, yes, to a morning edition of the Mark Moses Show here on a beautiful Thursday on the Space Coast. And yes, we're here on the Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorney Studios. Yes, take back control of your life. Call them at 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. And we have two great guests coming up today. Later, we will have Phillip Rossman-Reich with Magic taking on the G League Boston Celtics last night to get the win. But we're going to start with this fine gentleman. Yes, he is my great friend, Mr. Tim Walters, Mr. 321, the man, the myth, the legend with the Florida Today newspaper. I don't have his music, but Tim, how you doing today?
Well, thank you for the great intro, Mark. And I think you need a little more heavy metal guitar in that open of yours. It's got some, you hear the drumsticks going, but I need some shredding when we open up.
All right. I will work on this. This is a fluid conversation, how this show will be operated. I had to go online, and I'll just start with this. So with this format, I don't have music properties that I can use like I could on the radio. So I'm trying to find royalty-free generic music, but you want, let's make sure I get this right, you want royalty-free generic music that's heavy metal style. That's what you need moving forward.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yes, I like this. Before we get into everything, can you explain your t-shirt? What you're wearing exactly?
Well, Mark, if you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-team. Now, look, if you can't hire the A-team, hire Anidjar and Lavine. You see the bug right above me. Great company, great lawyers. But if you can find the A-team, go with them too.
I'm just shaking my head. I really am. I can't believe you just did that. Where did you purchase this t-shirt, buddy?
My brother gave it to me as a Christmas present several years ago, so I honestly, I don't know where it came from. He very well could have printed it up himself, but, I try and come on your show, be creative, have a different shirt or a different sport club each week, or a few weeks ago, I wore one for my friend's 5K, so try and keep it interesting for you and your viewing audience, Mark.
One of the great all-time intro songs for a TV show of all time. It had, and remember, it's not just the song, it's what you just said. There's an intro, then goes into the song. Da, 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 da. It's up there. I remember one year, I might have been 4 or 5 years old. I got that A-team van for the holidays. I was the happiest boy in the world. And I've met Mr. T compared to Homer Simpson. I have met him. It's the best. You need the van. They need to have an A-team transformer. That's what needs to be behind you. We need this to happen.
Yes, we've always wanted one of those. Now, I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to reach up here. I know, but for your listening audience, hold on.
Okay.
We have an original. We have an original 1983-ish Stomper of the A-team van. It no longer works. You can put a battery in it. It doesn't go. But this is one of my favorite things I have on display here amongst all of the crud in my office.
That is amazing. It really is. I knew you'd bring the thunder. I knew you'd have it ready to go. We're here with Tim Walters of the Florida Today. Let's get into some sports. Let's do it. I asked you before we came on, okay, what time did you go to sleep after the Florida Gators won the national title? What is your official answer?
Probably less than 2 minutes later. I mean, look, I got to be up super early in the morning on Tuesdays, and I may have maybe got 6 hours of sleep that night. But yes, that's kind of my MO, because these games are way too late for a person in their mid to late 40s who has a child that has to be up early in the morning. So what'd that game end? Maybe at about 11:15, 11:20. So it wasn't too bad, because they did move the start time back about 10 minutes. But yes, the game was over. Big smile on my face. TV off, roll over in bed. My wife was already passed out.
All right. Okay. I'm just trying to be there. I'm trying to be in the room with you. Were you on the couch turn TV off, or were you already in bed? What happened?
Yeah, no, we've got of course, like most people, we have a TV in the bedroom, so I was watching it on the slightly smaller television. But yep, it was just basically a click and roll over on my side, and I was off in dreamland.
Okay, I've said this all week, and I want to get your reaction, even though you said you went to sleep 120 seconds later. That's what you're on record as saying. When that final play happened and the Gators won on a defensive stop, I didn't really like celebrate. I didn't fist pump or high five. I kind of was just relieved. Like, oh, thank God they survived. Because that's what it felt like the last 4 games or so. How was your reaction to seeing that final play?
You know, when the Gators are behind late, they got them right where they want them. Although in that circumstance, they were up 2 with 19 seconds left, and you were hoping maybe at best you would get the tie. And that was one of the worst sequences Houston could have imagined. You know, they pulled back a 3, and then they just never got a shot off. I was talking to one of my coworkers who, you know, not only am I the sports editor here in Brevard at Florida Today, I'm also the sports editor for the Times-Union in Jacksonville. I was talking to one of my guys in Jacksonville, and he had this great analogy, I guess you call it. He said it was like somebody was playing a video game and the controller became unplugged because it was like Houston just couldn't do anything.
That's a great analogy for looking at it. And you look at the last 2 minutes of the game, and I got up the next morning and rewatched the last like 5 minutes. Dude, the last 2 minutes of the game, no one scored a field goal. No one. Neither team put the ball in the basket. The Gators took the lead off 3 free throw shots. That's it. If I would have told you that Monday afternoon, oh, the Gators wouldn't score with 2 minutes to go, what would you have told me then?
Yeah, then I might have thought they'd lose because usually in the last 2 or 3 minutes they're putting up like 50 points. You know, that's when they do all of their scoring. But you know, one of the crazy stats from this game is, you know, the Gators, they had a lead in the first couple of minutes of the game. Then they didn't lead again until the very end. They led 64 seconds in that game. I mean, that is, to me, that's the stat of the game right there. And if somebody would have told me Walter Clayton Jr. is only going to have 11 points, I'd be like, yeah, they're probably not going to do it. You know, Elijah Martin, who had been a star throughout, he only had 7 points. That guy, his shoulders, I wish I was built like that guy. But, you know, Will Richard, he was kind of the hero of the game. He kind of took, you know, but again, you knew Houston was going to hold Florida's offense to more of a low than you're used to, which they did because Florida's a high scoring team. But just the fact that they were able to hang in it, you know, they went on that big, what was it, 15-3 run, I think it was, late in the game just to come back and get that lead. So, you know, just that they hung around. They obviously were a better scoring team than Houston. Houston did what it wanted, and then they just couldn't score in the end.
Okay, here's how I look at it. The Gators are the champs. They won. They won the title. I give them all the credit. They went through a gauntlet of a schedule in the tournament to win the championship. But when I say, oh, this Gator team's an all-time great team, no. If they took on other great teams in the history of the tournament, oh, they're not winning. They're not. But that doesn't matter. We're not in fantasy land. Gators get it done. They do. So I thought of you because you went to the University of Florida. When you were there, did they win any type of championship and people were storming, like the students were storming the streets? And what was that? The kid was on the street light, and hopefully he's okay. When you went there, was there any chaos like that with the students?
Yeah, if people haven't seen that, look up the kid on the street light who he's up there. Oh, he's fallen. Yeah, that video is just horrific to see. But yes, Mark, I actually was very fortunate in my time at the University of Florida. So my first year there was actually the year they made it to their first national championship in football, but lost. They lost to Nebraska that year. The second year, and that game, they had to play Lawrence Phillips and who was the quarterback? Tommy Frazier. Yeah, and Lawrence Phillips shouldn't have even been playing in that game. I believe he had just dragged his girlfriend down the stairs by her hair or whatever it was, and they still let him play, and he ran for 8,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. The Gators didn't stand a chance in that game. The following year was the big championship where the Gators looked unstoppable. Then they go up to Tallahassee. The Seminoles had about 10 cheap shots on Danny Werfel, and that's not an exaggeration. They were trying to take him out. Gators lost 24-21. Then through a huge series of events, including a big upset by Texas. We always owe a little piece of that championship to Texas. But The Gators then end up getting the rematch with Florida State and destroy them 52-20. So that was a huge night. I think I slept 3 hours that night, Mark, because I partied till all hours of the morning. Had to show up at the shoe store I worked at, Athletic Addict, the next morning, and the line was a mile long for people to buy the hats, the t-shirts. We just had boxes and boxes waiting out. And, we worked on commission back then. And I can't tell you how much money I made that day just by ringing up t-shirt, ringing up hat and t-shirt. And I still have one of those hats over there. See the Gator display, Mark? There's a football above the Transformers. The hat is sitting on top of that football. I got one that day that they won the national championship. And then my final year at Florida, I was on the 5-year plan. The Gators made it into the national championship game in basketball for the first time. But you may remember they lost to Mateen Cleaves and Michigan State. So I got to see a lot of really good winning. And also, just to throw this in 98, I think it was only the second or third year of the Gators women's soccer program led by Abby Wambach, U.S. national team woman who won a gold medal. She took the Gators to a national title in their infancy of that soccer program. So a lot of great winning when I was there.
So, yeah, my question was, did you get to experience anything like that? Yes, would have been okay. You went into the I'm better than you Ric Flair style. Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, so now I'm confused. So they beat Florida State, but back then in the olden times, you had to be then voted number one. So it's like you win the Sugar Bowl, but after the game, it's not like, oh, you're the national champions. Wasn't it like the next day they were crowned champions? I'm confused.
No, they were champions that night because what had happened was I believe it was Texas upset Nebraska in a bowl game. I would have to really.
Okay. I was at that game. I went with my sister. It was in St. Louis, Missouri. It was the first ever Big 12 title game. Texas beat Nebraska. Scott Frost was the quarterback in that game, and that opened the door. Okay, it was Florida versus Florida State. Did you have product for Florida State as well if they would have won the game? How did this work exactly?
No, the boxes started arriving. I can't remember what time. In fact, we opened the mall early that day. You could enter a mall, but the stores didn't open up until whatever time it was, 9 or 10 o'clock. But I think they started getting trucks in around probably 5:30, 6 in the morning. And so I think I was up till about 3 or 4 in the morning. I think I slept 2 or 3 hours. I got there about 7:30 in the morning, and we opened the gates up maybe at 8 because there was just literally us. There was Champs. We had one other sports store in the Oaks Mall in Gainesville, but I mean, it looked like you were waiting on, to buy tickets for Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, there's no internet back then to buy anything. So you had to go there in person. So where did you watch that game that? And you must, dude, I imagine you watch the game, you're partying. No, what? You must have slept in the car for 2 hours. You gave me your PR answer. It must have been much worse than what you're saying right now. Come on.
Yeah, gosh, I think I remember where I watched. And he's got a generic name, so I can mention him. John Nelson, if you're out there, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Okay, here's what I would have done. If I was a student on Monday, all right, I would have gotten all my classwork done. Maybe. I'm doing the Chris Farley air quotes when I say that. No class was getting done Tuesday. No way. Everyone is. Would you have gone into that scrum, that just chaos, which was going on there Monday night in Gainesville?
Oh, well, I mean, it was pretty thick, I would say, but we also went to the parties and the parades that happened. But if you remember back then, the game was on, I think it was on January 1st or 2nd. So we didn't have class the next day. There wasn't like Tuesday morning class was in session. So that was still when it was over winter break. Now these poor kids, they got to endure it on like, for football, January 20th or whatever it is. They do have class the next day.
Yeah, no class is getting done. I had another guest yesterday say, what if the Gators the football team was in the national title game? I was like, no, you're thinking too high. Just if the Gators had a home playoff game in December, it'd be all chaos there where nothing would get done. But are you going to buy personally? Are you going to buy any of the merch for basketball that they won the championship?
I may get around to it. I don't know, Mark. Yeah, I would like to own some merchandise. So if you'd like to send me a shirt, Mark, I'll Zell you some money.
Okay, I will work on this with Tim Walters with Florida Today. Now, last Friday, I told you I was going to go to Chicago. So I'm going to bring this up. I sent you this photo. Let's see if we can bring this up here to the stage. Yes, this is an actual photo I took. What you don't see is there's thousands of people watching me take this photo. I looked very stupid, but I made sure for the people and you that I took this photo for you. Do you like this photo that I sent you while you were working last Friday afternoon?
Yes, I love that photo. I have my picture by that sign as well. But I will tell you this, Mark, I guarantee you are not the only person who's ever taken a silly looking photo in front of that billboard. So, in fact, people were probably thinking, that's tame. Why isn't this guy naked waving his pants above his head?
Well, as a White Sox fan, the game plan was I have to support Chicago, but I'm not going to wear anything Cubs. So I went with the the Bears jacket. Do you approve of this move by me?
Oh, come on. You could have gotten a Cubs hat or a jersey or something. I
Oh,
mean, they beat the red hot Padres that day, Mark. I mean, come on.
it was 50 degrees at first pitch. Um, how do I put this? They had so many different t-shirts you would have loved. I don't know. I should have bought you one. I like this one shirt I saw at an actual official store, and it said the greatest night ever is a night in Cleveland in 2016. Would you have liked that shirt? Do you approve of that?
Yes, I've got 4 or 5 different shirts from when the Cubs won the World Series, so it would have gone well with that collection.
Okay, so this is the other photo I want to show you. This was in Sluggers, a bar across the street, which I know you've probably been into. This was right before first pitch. People in there. Would you have partied with the people in this situation?
Yeah, I remember being in a packed bar like that. The game we saw the day we were there, I believe it was the Oakland A's, and Carlos
Mm.
Zambrano was the pitcher. So it's been a while since I've
Oh,
been there, but I remember being in a packed bar like that before the game because back then I was much younger and able to party before a game, during a game, and after a game.
so we go upstairs, my buddy Jason and I go up to one of the bartenders. This is once the game started, it kind of cleared out. So I was like, all right, give me 2 cold ones. Give me 2 beers. She goes, sorry, cash only. And I yell, cash only? What is this, 1995? And she looks at me dead serious. And she goes, these prices aren't from 1995. The ATM's right over there. Oh, man. Oh,
I
man.
love that person. She's great.
This lady should have been my next ex-wife. Fantastic lady. She was great. So then we go to the Cubby Bear. And I tell my buddy Jason, all right, I'm going to buy you a beer. This is the Cubby Bear, one of the most famous bars here in Wrigleyville. So we go up to the bar. I go, all right, give me 2 Coors Lights. And my buddy Jason, he starts singing the Love Train song from the Coors Light ad from 20 years ago, which you remember. I get 2 tall boys. The price was $25 before giving a tip. 22 beers. Remember, I'm not in the stadium. What are your thoughts, buddy? Mr. Economist, what are your thoughts?
It makes me think of an old episode of The Simpsons where there's prohibition and Barney gets a beer. It comes out of a bowling ball and they charge him a ridiculous price. I don't remember, but it would be like with your $25, this better be the best beer ever. And then he takes it. You got lucky.
Yeah, you did. All right. So after about a couple of them, I said, you know what, Jason? Let's go in the game. It's the 4th inning. We'll get a cheap seat. We'll say we were in there for opening day. So we go up, we go across the street, we go right up to the guy, ticket office. We go up there. All right, give me 2 tickets for the game. What do you got? He goes, hey, standing room only. Again, no seat, standing room only, $43. I said, you know what? Fine. And I take out my card, I hand it to him, and he goes, sorry, bro. And he points at the window and there's a QR code. And he says, you got to download the Park app to then purchase the ticket. And look, you're shaking your head. So I tell him, what's the point of you then? What are we doing here? Why do you have a job, bro? And because he's been doing this all day, he keeps pointing at the QR code, download the app. I said, just forget it. I'm not downloading. I don't understand the universe, Tim. Can you explain it to me? Can't I just purchase a ticket? What is this?
Mark, we're dinosaurs. That's the
I
problem.
I don't understand. I go to the bank and I deposit a check. And the woman working there goes, you could just go on the app and take a photo of it. And I go, no, I got to this is where I turn into Tony Soprano. No, I need to see you take that money from me. And I need to know it's in the bank or people are going to lose their lives around here. This isn't your money. This is my money. Make sure. And I want to make sure the woman still has a job. If I'm just using the app, what's the point of you? All right. I'm a dinosaur, Tim. You're right. It's all
Oh,
over.
yeah, and I hate it. Like, sometimes I'll go to deposit cash in the bank, and they'll be like, "Oh, you could do this in the ATM." You want me to feed money into a machine? No, forget it. You've got 2 hands and a job. I like talking to a human being. Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Banker.
Yeah. We go up to Milwaukee. And it's funny, from my brother's house, he lives in Evanston. So it's right there on the north side. It's like mind-boggling. So to get up to downtown Milwaukee, it takes like an hour and 10 minutes. You just go up. Just go straight up the highway, 94, you go right up. That's like us going to Disney. It's like that's how long it pretty much takes to get to Disney World from where we live. So we go there. We go to that video game convention. I wish you were with me, buddy. You would have loved it because the one room which was really cool, which you would have loved. So it had the history of video games and computers. So gigantic room where you're like, okay, we'll start with the basics. Here's the Apple II computer. Go play Oregon Trail on it. And people were playing. And here's the history of pinball. And then it was like, okay, here's ColecoVision. Intellivision seats every single one. And then Nintendo, Super Nintendo. And then it had like failed systems like the Atari Jaguar, Philips CDI, like all these just horrible. You know this Virtual Boy, where it was like in 3D and they just failed horribly. You would have loved that, Tim. I wish you were with me for that.
I could probably open my own little version of that here. I have the Atari 2600. It still works in a box full of games. I have the original NES. I have the Super Nintendo. And then I went to college and I never got an N64. My daughter's been pushing for that new Switch 2. It's too expensive. Now they're floating them over from China or Japan or wherever with an $8 million tariff on it. So I don't think I'll be buying one of those unless I win some sort of contest.
It was nostalgia overload because they had one room where it was all the old Nintendo kiosks. So when you would go to Sears or I'm trying to think like KB Toys or all these things when we were growing up. So like the kiosks to try the Nintendo or the Game Boy. I'm telling you, it was nostalgia overload. You're like, my childhood. And the best part for me, so many vendors and they had like tubs and bins of video games. And what I do is this is where I show up. I start haggling with money. I love it. So I was like, all right, it was 25. I'll give you 20 on the spot. Deal. See, this is where you would like this as well. And your games, because you've told this before, you have those original Nintendo games in the box. You're like the GOAT here. Oh, those were not cheap, my friend. You can make a lot of money off that stuff you have there. Like a lot.
Well, they're a little beat up, obviously, because we played them. I just happen to be smart enough to keep the boxes for some of the games.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There were games there that I own. This is why I have to have insurance on my property is for all the video games I own. Don't tell anyone that. But before I let you go, what do you got going on with the Florida Today newspaper, buddy?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because there's a ton of stuff going on. I'm bringing my list up here, Mark, because I did want to get a lot of great local things.
A list of things.
A lot of good local things that I want to talk about. Number one, last night, congratulations to Merritt Island High School baseball. They beat O'Galley 2-1 for the Cape Coast Conference Championship.
Nice.
And then you've got the Cape Coast Conference track will be held Friday. So we're going to have reporting on that. This is a big story, Mark, locally, not to do with high school, but to do with college. On Tuesday at 1 p.m., Florida Tech is going to be unveiling its new men's and women's basketball coaches. their women's basketball coach, John Reynolds, stepped down after 38 years and 606 wins. And then their men's basketball coach, by those terms, is in his infancy, but he was there 20 years himself. A great guy. I know he's a friend of yours, and I like him too. Billy Mims, wonderful man, personality, teacher, mentor. So both of those coaches retired on the same day, March 14th.
Yeah.
And so they will be unveiling their new coaches on Tuesday at 1:00. So Chastity Banks, our sports reporter, will be there. Craig Bailey, our photographer, will be out there. So we'll get in some information on that. On top of that, Mark, we're rolling out starting Sunday our all Space Coast teams. So there will be 6 of them this year: boys and girls soccer, boys and girls basketball, boys wrestling, and for the first time, we will have an all Space Coast girls wrestling team, which is awesome. They're up to 10 teams now in the county. We had a state champion from Vieira, which is really cool. So we're going to start rolling those out this Sunday with girls soccer, and then Tuesday with boys soccer, and then the following Thursday, and then the following Sunday, and then the following Tuesday and Thursday. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, we'll be releasing the all Space Coast teams.
That is really cool. That really is. And I know you got like spring football, all that stuff. You know, it's funny. I think the Gators have their spring game on Saturday. We've just, so much basketball. Are you excited for that on Saturday?
Yeah, the Orange and Blue game will be held at 1 p.m. Saturday. I'm glad you mentioned that. We own the Gainesville Sun at Gainesville.com, and they've got reporting on that. This is the second year in a row they brought it back to Saturdays. If you remember, in his first 2 years, Billy Napier made it on Thursday nights because he thought he could get more recruits to come to the game as opposed to on Saturdays when you're fighting with other places. But what they found was, number one, fans didn't like it on Thursday nights because then you're at the Swamp until all hours of the night and people still have to be at school and work Friday morning. Number two, they actually had less attendance on the Thursday games than they did last year on the Saturday game. So they're bringing it back to Saturdays. That's a good thing. And you also, you mentioned that, other big things going on in the state. We have the draft coming up. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the editor over Jacksonville. They've got the number 5 overall pick in the draft. So we've been doing mock drafts, mock trade drafts, and all sorts of things at Jacksonville.com. So great reporting there. So Mark, it's an exciting time. And I'll mention one other story we're working on. This probably won't be released maybe for another 3 or 4 weeks because Chastity right now, Brian McCallum, our other reporter, left to go back home to New Orleans or to Louisiana where he took a job. So Chastity's been by herself. So she's got to finish these all area teams. We've got baseball, we got softball, but she's also working on another story. This was the first year flag football teams played in Brevard County. Now, there were only 2 of them. There were the girls at Melbourne and the girls at West Shore. But that's going to be expanding. Flag football is one of the quickest growing girls sports in America for high schools. And so we're going to find out, are we going to be getting more teams? What's it going to look like? Will we, maybe see some playoffs or something, or how far in the future that is? So she's working on a nice story there. So Chastity Banks, follow her at 321 Preps on Twitter and Instagram. And she does a great job for us, Mark.
I like you pulled all that off with an A-team shirt on. That was very professional. I love it. You are the man. He is Tim Walters with the Florida Today. Always appreciate coming on. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. All right, buddy?
Well, Mark, I love it when a plan comes together.
Great stuff. Always love talking to Tim Walters with the Florida Today newspaper. He does a great job, and he does join us every Thursday here on the show. Check out his stuff. Yeah, FloridaToday.com. We're here in the Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorney Studios. Yes, take back control of your life. Call them today, 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. They're Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorneys. All right, let's get this guy on. If I can bring him up, I'm going to do it all here. He is my good friend, Phillip Rossman-Reich with Orlando Magic Daily. He actually showed up to the Kia Center last night. I know the Boston Celtics didn't, but it was a big win for the Magic. Phillip, how you doing today, buddy?
I am doing good. It is nice to relax these last 2 games. Not gonna lie, I was ready to have to be stressed all weekend, and now I'm just gonna be enjoying a little trip.
You are absolutely right. You posted through Orlando Magic Daily, I'd say around 3:00 yesterday. You're like, oh, the following people are out for the Celtics. What are your thoughts when this late in the season? I know they played the night before. But why didn't they show up last night to play their actual players?
Well, they're locked into the 2 seed. The Cavaliers wrapped up the 1 seed when they beat the Bulls on Tuesday night. So there is literally nothing for them to play for. They can't move up, they can't move down. There is nothing on the line, nothing at stake for them. And so after playing an overtime game in New York, after a tough back-to-back, Joe Mazzulla said they didn't get into the hotel until about 4:30. There's just no reason to stress your players and your key players. There's just no reason to push them. Yes, could you have made a statement against a Magic team you might see in the playoffs and just be like, hey, don't get any ideas? That stuff doesn't matter. That's not how the Celtics think. They're going for a championship, and if they can get guys an extra day of rest in a game that means nothing, they're going to do that. And so I think it's yes, disappointing for the fans because Boston only came to town twice. Jason Tatum, I don't think, played in that first matchup back in December. But we're going to see them, the Magic might see them again in a couple weeks. So don't worry, you'll get your chance.
Okay, I have to say this, then we'll talk actual basketball. Those tickets weren't half off. Those are full price. You and me, we're covering it. I feel bad for the fans if they spent all the money last night and then they saw like a G League team for Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that and completely get that. And look, that's on the NBA for scheduling ridiculous back-to-backs. I am a very big advocate that there should be more home back-to-backs than road back-to-backs. I know schedule forces you to do some of it, but to have a team travel from New York to Orlando, that's like, look, when the schedule comes out every year, you go through the schedule and you look at like, okay, when are the big road trips? When is the homestand? Like, what's the finals push like? What's the starting push like? One of the things I always look at is like, what are the back-to-backs that just stink? That are just like, this just isn't going to work. Every team has 2 or 3 schedule losses in their season. And the reality is this was a schedule loss for the Celtics. They were always going to, even if they played their guys, this was going to be a tough one for them to win. And so the fact that there was nothing on the line for them, this is what happens late in the season. You're seeing this throughout the league. The Magic are probably going to do it in their last 2 games this weekend. Guys are going to sit. They're not going to play their normal minutes. There's no point to doing it. At the end of the day, if the goal is to win a championship and be ready for the playoffs, everyone's got to acknowledge that. And everyone's got to be okay with that and teams playing things this way.
We're here with, Phillip Rossman-Reich, Orlando Magic Daily. Magic now locked into the 7th seed, but they still have to go to the play-in tournament. All right, I can talk Paolo. I can talk Franz. No, I want to start with Corey Joseph. Did he help this basketball team kind of calm down and get back to fundamental basketball and help them over the last couple weeks to get the 7th seed?
I really think he did. I really think he's been a vital piece to this team. And while he's not playing like quote unquote starters minutes or playing kind of the end of games, he brings just a huge level of calm and organization to this team. He gets guys in the right spot. He is a capable shooter. He doesn't need the ball in his hands a lot, but he's not afraid to attack when he can. And he's just like a calming voice and a veteran voice. And he's been that veteran voice in the locker room the entire season. He just wasn't playing. Now he's playing, and you're kind of seeing the level of poise that he brings. And it's just, everyone talks about the Magic's point guard issue and the fact that they don't have a traditional point guard. Corey Joseph, and the way that he's played and settled this team down and given them some consistency at that spot, balanced their bench a little bit, has been a big argument for why the Magic probably need to invest in a point guard this summer.
When Jalen Suggs went down, it looked like this team was like lost. It really was. And you look at, I'm trying to think, when was it, like a month ago when they had that homestand and they did not play well. They won like 1 or 2 games. Is that when they kind of turned it around and went to Joseph and then this thing happened?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like Cole Anthony had a little bit of an injury. He was dealing with a knee issue, and that kind of pushed Corey Joseph into the lineup because, Anthony Black wasn't a super reliable shooter. They didn't really trust him necessarily to be that full-time point guard. His numbers when he plays with Paolo and Franz aren't great. When he's with just one of them or he's with the bench group, they're much better. So I think they realize that that's a more effective way to use him. And so, that part of the season turned things around. And look, some of that's just about will. Like they went 1-6 on that 7-game homestand. They hit the road for what looked like a very tough road trip. They go 3-2 on that trip, including the win over the Cavs. And that turned the season around. Like being that successful on the road, the Magic now have won 5 straight games on the road. Being that successful on the road, I think really gave this team a shot of confidence and just a shot of belief that they'd been missing for the last month and a half when they were kind of struggling to put together wins. Now, like, everything's been settled, roles are settled, guys are comfortable playing with each other, and you're seeing the product of that chemistry play out here at the end of the season.
Okay, you watch every single game, every minute, every second. Here's how I've been looking at the last couple weeks. They take on a West Coast team, Western Conference type power. They struggle. Then they get the Wizards, blow them out. They blow them out. Did this schedule, these East Coast teams, did it help them down this stretch here?
Look, you gotta play everybody, and I know that people look at those kinds of records and those kinds of things and be like, oh, they just beat the Wizards, they just beat the Spurs, but those wins still count. And when you're in a tight playoff race, every single one of those wins count. Like, the Magic are sitting in the 7 seed instead of fighting for the 6 on the last day of the season because they got swept by the Jazz, worst team in the league at this point. They're in line to get the number 1 pick or have the best odds in the lottery. They got swept by the Blazers. Good team. Like, I'm not taking anything away from the Blazers, but they were just starting to pick up their steam when the Magic lost to them twice. They lost 2 to the Raptors at home. With one of those games when Toronto sat all their starting players and tried to give the game away. Nearly did, but Jacoby Walter made a tough shot. Those are the kind of games that cost you playoff positioning. And so, yes, the Magic have feasted on bad teams here lately. They've gotten some nice wins too. They beat the Lakers at home, if you want to remember. They beat the Cavs on the road. They've got some nice wins, but you got to be able to beat these bad teams. You can't, like we all talked about it, the way the Magic's schedule finished with Boston, Indiana, and then Atlanta, we all understood that Orlando had to bank some wins early. They had to be in the lead when they faced the Hawks on Tuesday, and they couldn't afford to drop games to Washington, to San Antonio, to those kinds of teams. No offense to them. Because we knew Atlanta was playing Brooklyn and Philadelphia this week. Chicago was playing Washington. Miami was playing Washington. All of their competition had easier roads home. And so the Magic had to take care of their business, or else they would probably be sitting in the 8 seed or maybe even playing in the 9-10 game.
Okay, I went 6 minutes. Now I will do it with Phillip. Is Paolo playing at an MVP level now, where he's dropping 30 a game here in the last, I'd say, month or so?
I mean, you look at the scoring numbers and you look at the impact numbers, and he absolutely is. He's certainly playing at an all-NBA level. And honestly, like, this is the level that he was playing at before his oblique injury. It took him a little while to get his legs under him. He needed the All-Star break maybe to get his conditioning back a little bit and kind of find his rhythm again. But look, he until last night, he had a string of 20 straight games scoring 20-plus points, one of the longest strings in Magic history. Really only T-Mac, I think it's the 5th or 6th longest stretch in Magic history. Him and Franz were obviously had their 20-point streak. That was snapped. Second longest streak in NBA history for 2 players under 23 years old. Paolo, it's not just that. Like, all the knocks on Paolo have been his efficiency, have been the Magic don't win the minutes that he's playing. It's just all these little things. And all of them were just not true over the last few weeks. When the Magic were better with Paolo on the floor, he was hitting mid-range shots. He was hitting threes comfortably. He was making free throws at a high rate. He was doing he was like putting all those pieces together and was just unstoppable. When he's hitting that mid-range jumper, there's nothing anyone can do because he's just so big. His footwork is so good. There's just nothing you could do if he's hitting shots over you like that. And that opens up everything else in his game. It opens everything else for the Magic's game. Orlando is back in the 7 seed. They're back in the Southeast Division Championship. They're back with all that stuff because Paolo made the leap that we were expecting him to make this season that was interrupted by the oblique injury.
Is he untradeable?
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, June 30th, free agency opens June 30th at 6 p.m. Expect a tweet from Shams saying Paolo Banchero just signed a max extension. And frankly, it's very, very possible and honestly very realistic he will end up getting the Supermax as an All-NBA player next year.
Yes, I agree with you. Look, I bring that up, Phillip. We saw Luka last night crying in his return to Dallas, so anyone can get traded.
Anything can happen. Yep, absolutely.
Anything can happen. But, like, the history of this franchise, which you've been here since day one, where they lost Shaq, they lost T-Mac, they lost Penny, all these players. I'm like, in the history of Orlando sports, there is no way moving forward. No, unless he wants to leave, this guy is going to be a Magic player, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like he is going. I mean, everyone asks me. Everyone's expecting a Seattle expansion team. We know how much Paolo loves his hometown. There are people worried about him leaving if the Magic don't do things the right way. And I'm just like, look, he's going to sign a max extension. He cannot get the super max from anyone else but the Magic. You have 8 years with a player like Paolo Banchero. The 4 years of his rookie contract, and then the 4 or 5 years of his next extension. Everybody signs that rookie extension. That's a player of his caliber. If you can't figure out how to build a title contending team with Paolo Banchero in 8 years, you don't deserve him. That's just plain and simple. You don't deserve a player like that. This year has been a step back. Obviously, injuries have played a huge role, but the Magic, I think, are still on a really good track, and Paolo is getting better. He's just going to continue to get better, and so I don't think there should be no concern. The Magic have the hard part down. They have 2 all-star level players, and they have them under contract for a very, very long time. Now it's about finding the right role players, unlocking the best parts of their game, hiding some of their weaknesses perhaps, and putting them in the best position to win at a higher level.
Okay, you brought this up earlier. We're here with Phillip Rossman-Reich, Orlando Magic Daily. Joining me here in the Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorney Studios. Okay, 2 games ago, they're both on the road. It's Indiana, and then who do they have? Is it Atlanta?
Atlanta again.
Okay, my gut is telling me, if I'm going into the like I'm Miss Cleo, looking into the future, I think it's going to be Bulls at Magic for the 7th, 8th seed. I think that's what's going to happen. What are the different scenarios that your gut's telling you going into next week then?
Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tricky. So Chicago currently trails the Hawks by a half game after they beat the Heat last night. Atlanta still plays Brooklyn and Philadelphia on the road. If you talk to Hawks fans, and been talking to Hawks fans for a while now, they're never 100% confident on their ability to beat bad teams, mainly because they don't defend. Their defense has just fallen to shambles. They're just really bad on defense right now. So I do think Chicago has a way to get in. Chicago's schedule on the road home, not particularly difficult either. Like they have a comfortable road to get. They have a comfortable final 2 games here. It's for Atlanta. It's going to come down to that game in Orlando, and frankly, how serious Orlando takes that game. I'm not going to sit here and say Orlando's going to handpick their opponent. Like, I don't think that's the way they're approaching things. They know that Atlanta's dangerous. They got Trae Young. They know Chicago's dangerous. They're one of the hottest teams in the league still. They've cooled off considerably over the last few weeks, but they're still a really dangerous team with a lot of really solid players. Orlando isn't going to necessarily say we're going to pick which opponent we want. They're not going to push their star players. Like, I'm not expecting Paolo or Franz to play in Sunday's game. I'm expecting them not to play their full minutes on Friday. There's just no reason to push them. The Magic are going to let those teams figure themselves out. And if Atlanta beats Orlando on Sunday, Atlanta's probably going to be the team coming to Orlando. So I am anticipating that it'll be the Hawks on Tuesday.
Chicago scares me.
A little bit.
Can you just talk about this real quick? I thought once they traded Zach Lavine, I thought they were going to tank. What happened exactly with this team?
I mean, some of it is just they caught fire. You know, they like the thing about Zach Lavine is he's not like a super high usage guy, but he's, I don't know, like, I'm going to put it politely, he's kind of a low energy player. Like he kind of cruises through the game, and like he gets his buckets. Like when he gets on a scoring spurt like he did the other night for Sacramento, like he can still do that, but not super engaged defensively. Like unless he's scoring the ball, he's not doing a whole lot for you. And that's kind of why the Bulls couldn't move Zach Lavine whenever they wanted to move Zach Lavine. That's why I think that's one of the reasons why Sacramento has struggled so much since the trade is just some players, especially at his age, his injury history, I don't think it's completely his fault, that some guys just don't, they can put up points, but they don't help you win. And so I think this was a little bit of addition by subtraction. Getting rid of Zach Lavine put the ball in Josh Giddey's hands more, put the ball in Kobe White's hands more. They're moving the ball a lot more. They're playing with a lot more motion. And then, yeah, Kobe White caught fire. Like he had this incredible run over the last 2-3 weeks, and that just built something really special with Chicago. Is that enough to say like Chicago's like, oh, this is our team, we can build with this? I don't know. Chicago's still kind of stuck in the play-in ringer. They've cooled off considerably. So, you know, maybe that is a team that you don't mind facing because you know what Trae Young will do in a big game. You know, that there's always the Trae Young element with Atlanta, but Chicago caught lightning in a bottle. There's always a team that does that gets really hot toward the end of the season. Chicago was that team, and they put themselves in a really good spot here coming to the final weeks. They're seemingly going to get a home play-in game, which I know will make Jerry Reinsdorf very happy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My scenario of, okay, yeah, the Magic, yay, we're the 7th seed. They could still blow this. They could lose a game at home, and they could lose another game to Miami or Chicago. I don't know what to think. Like, I want to celebrate, but I'm hesitant.
The Magic, like the issue with the Magic has and always will be for this season. Their offense stinks. They're playing better right now, but they are always kind of due for a stinker where they just don't make shots, where they do the right things, but the three-pointers don't go down. The trust within the roster decreases. We saw that against Dallas. That was a winnable game. Orlando couldn't make a shot. We've seen that throughout the course of the season. Honestly, like, the most encouraging part of the last 2 nights for Orlando was there's never really an offensive lull against Atlanta. But when they did hit those lulls, their defense stayed locked in. They treated that like a playoff game and really stepped up their defensive intensity. Said, we're not going to care how much we score. If we defend, we'll score enough. Even against Boston, I know Boston was undermanned, and there's been some people disappointed. They only got 96 points. They won by 20. Like, I'm not. There's nothing to learn from that game. It was just a useless game.
Yeah.
But they had some real offensive struggles in that game. But they never let Boston, once they pulled away, once they took that lead, they never let Boston really threaten them or catch fire so that, that young team could gain confidence. So I think that there's a little bit more confidence that now that the playoffs are here and the postseason is here, the Magic are going to be a little bit more consistent on defense and be able to withstand that. But yeah, you play against a Kobe White, you play against a Trae Young, you play against a Tyler Hero, any of those guys can get hot and make a bunch of threes. And the Magic just aren't necessarily equipped to match that if that happens.
Okay, before I let you go, and yes, we're always joined here by Phillip Rossman-Reich, Orlando Magic Daily. Does a great job covering the Magic here on the Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorney Studios. All right, who are the true contenders in the Eastern Conference? Is it just Boston and Cleveland? How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think it's just Boston. I think Boston and Cleveland are on a collision course for the Eastern Conference Finals. And I don't think there is much any of the teams below them can do. New York is very famously winless against the Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder this year. They have not proven they are able to beat those top teams. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's just coming back from an injury, but their depth issues, I think, are going to really show up in the playoffs. They've looked a little bit exhausted here toward the end of the season. I'll give Indiana a fair shot. Like, they got to the conference finals last year. They've had a really nice season. They play fast. They get up a lot of shots. They're really efficient on offense. They're better on defense than people give them credit for. Indiana is going to be a thorn in someone's side. But at the end of the day, nobody has the firepower. Nobody has the kind of precision. Nobody has the expertise or the calm that Cleveland and Boston have. And I just think they're just a level above everybody in the conference. And obviously the Magic are going to see probably one, if they get out of the play-in, they're going to see one of those teams. They're going to find out just how far they are from the top of the heap.
Is there a true contender in the West, or is it just up for grabs where any of these teams?
No, I mean, look, people are sleeping on how good the Thunder have been this year. That like there are like all these statistical measures that are just like the Thunder have the best net rating in NBA history. Like, they are pummeling teams. They're balanced offensively. They got the probable MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all due respect to Nikola Jokic, having an MVP-worthy season too. They've got an MVP candidate. They've got an elite defense. They harass you. They turn you over. They love to defend. They're pretty deep. They have different guys who can score. Oklahoma City is just not far and away because Cleveland's right there with them record-wise, but nobody is talking about how good this Oklahoma City team is. I think all the other West contenders have fatal flaws, but even with the coaching change, I can't sleep on Denver. They have that championship pedigree. They have Nikola Jokic, who's just such a difficult cover when they're healthy, which they haven't been recently. And obviously they have a coaching change, so it's just like we don't know what to expect from them. They're still a title contender. I do think the other teams around the West probably don't have enough to get there. Minnesota's been so up and down. They might be in the play-in. The Rockets are just so young and inexperienced. I don't think they're quite ready, although they'll get a good taste of what the playoffs are like this year. The the Lakers have the top end talent, but I think their lack of size is going to kill them in the postseason. The West is competitive as it's been in the standings. I do think it's Oklahoma City and everybody else out west. I give Denver the champions respect, and I think they'll be competitive, and depending on where they end up. But I do think that you're looking at 3 legit title contenders here in the NBA.
Okay, before I let you go, for fun, I was in Chicago last weekend, and my brother lives in Evanston. You are a distinguished Northwestern alumni. Yes, you are.
Distinguished is a stretch.
Yeah, come on. So they are working on the football stadium.
Yes.
It is going to be awesome. Will you go to a football game with me? We need to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I am trying to, I'm kind of waiting for the UCF schedule to finalize and the Magic schedule to finalize. I'm trying to get to Martin Stadium before they move out of Martin Stadium, before they move out of the temporary stadium. So I'm hoping to get back to Evanston for a game this year. The football team is not going to be that great from everything I'm hearing, although I'm really excited about the quarterback they brought in. But the new stadium is going to be awesome. I am planning to try and get to New Ryan Field once it opens next year. Hopefully it opens on time for them to have that big debut against Colorado.
Is it going to be kind of like the Cowboys Stadium where it's like the fans are under kind of a roof, but then it's open?
Yeah, it's the way they're building it is sort of like a soccer stadium with the canopy and kind of keeping everything like tight and compact. Like most teams, like when they build a new stadium, they like saying we're adding capacity, we're trying to get more people. Well, like Northwestern has problems filling their stadium. They decrease capacity to try and make a better fan experience. Like that's the thing they've been trying to sell everyone on is like we're competing against watching the game on TV. We need to create an experience for fans to make them want to come to the stadium and not watch the game on TV. And it really seems like that's what they're trying to do. And what they're trying to create this like kind of pro level game experience at the college level. And obviously like Northwestern, they understand that they need to have an attraction to get people into the building besides the football a lot of times. And certainly they're going to be attracting fans from other teams. So lower capacity isn't necessarily a bad thing for them. But the specs that I've seen from the stadium, like everything I've read about it feels like this is a proactive way to combat kind of people checking out of going to live events. So it's going to be interesting to see. Look, I'm still trying to get to Martin Stadium. I want to check out the Lakefront Stadium. I thought that was a brilliant idea. Everything I've heard about it from people who go to it were like, this is what they should have just done all along. They should have just built the stadium here and just made the view the deal.
We'll find out. All right, check out Orlando Magic Daily. Look, on the Twitter X, the website. Follow this guy, Phillip Rossman-Reich, for the latest on the Magic and the NBA. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy, and good luck with the last 2 games of the regular season, all right?
I appreciate it, Mark.
All right, great stuff. Love talking with Phil. He's a good dude. Yeah, we talked with Tim Walters, Florida Today, and right there with Phillip Rossman-Reich, Orlando Magic Daily. We're here with the Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorney Studios. Yes, they will fight for you and get you the maximum compensation you deserve. Call for free consultation and don't settle for just any attorney. Demand Anidjar and Lavine. Take back control of your life. Call them today. 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. They're Anidjar and Lavine Accident Attorneys. So, yeah, if you're just chiming in before I leave for the day, so Magic clinched the 7 seed, right? This is very key. They are going to play Indiana on Friday, Atlanta on Sunday, both road games. They're locked into hosting a 7-8 game playing game next week there at the Kia Center. We'll see who they're going to play, and then if they win one, they have 2 chances to win 1 game. They'll go to the NBA playoffs. So that's what's going to be coming up. I'll say this also. Check out markmosesshow.com for the latest on the show, socials, YouTube videos, and more. And if you want to register to win Orlando City Soccer Club tickets, I have those all season long. All right, I'm out of here. Have a great day. I thought I'd go early. Got a lot of work to do behind the scenes. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow right here on the Mark Moses Show.